today's webinar, Introduction to Cognos Analytics. Today we are going to be discussing the top 3 user enhancements of the tool. We have myself, Kristen Brown, Marketing Events Manager. I'll be moderating the call and all questions. Scott Massage, Engagement Manager with Ironside. And Bob O'Donnell will be conducting the demo. He is the Senior Technical Solutions Architect with IBM Analytics. Quickly, there will be a lot of questions, I assume, that will come in during today's presentation. There is a dashboard that you can type in all your questions, and we'll be answering all questions at the end of the presentation. If your question is not answered, we're going to be circulating, along with the replay, questions and answers out in a couple of days. So if your question is not answered over the phone today, I assure you it will be answered in the next couple of days or so. I'm just going to hand it over now to Scott.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Okay, so let's go over a quick agenda. So we're going to have an introduction. We're going to do a walkthrough of the top 3 features. Bob's going to do a deep dive exploration of Cognos Analytics, which will touch on those top 3 features. We'll talk about a special offer we have, and then we'll follow up that with a question and answer session. So to start, let me tell you a little bit about Ironside. So we specialize in all facets of business analytics and analytics strategy, which includes business intelligence, performance management, predictive analytics, information management, big data, managed hosting, and training. Okay, so if you will, Ironside by the numbers. So we've been around since 1999. We have more than 75 employees across the U.S. and have been awarded the IBM Business Analytics Partner of the Year in 2 out of the last 3 years. And that lower right-hand corner is one of our proudest achievements, 500+ happy clients. Okay, so as an introduction, I want to introduce this idea of the personas. So certainly as IBM has rolled out Cognos Analytics, there's a focus on this, and that is there's a consumption persona, an authoring persona, and a modeling persona. Each of them is a slightly different role. We'll go into those in a little bit more detail. But I also want to talk about the rise of what Gartner is calling modern BI and how that can accelerate the enablement of business users. Okay, so a little bit deeper dive on the 3 personas. Consumption. This is the role where you're running standardized reports, you're subscribing to reports, and you're building your own dashboards. Okay. The next is authoring. That's where you're leveraging Cognos Analytics to design and author reports, as well as the activities of the consumption persona. Okay. So if you think about it, this is kind of the role that would engage in a 10.2.2 world, Cognos Workspace Advanced, Report Studio, that sort of thing. Okay, and then the final one is new, right? So modeling is leveraging the modeling capabilities of Cognos Analytics to load personal data, integrate that data with enterprise sources of data, as well as, and that role also includes the activities of the consumption and authoring personas. Okay, so again, we're going to target our kind of top new features into these categories. Okay, and so let's talk a little bit about Gartner and this concept of a modern BI platform. So according to Cindy Howson, a modern BI platform should provide agility to the competent and protect the uninitiated from their overconfidence. Okay, so you know, we feel that Cognos Analytics delivers on that definition of modern BI. So, you know, it provides agility, so it provides for fast business user enablement through its simple and intuitive user experience. It allows business users to start building reports directly from data and solve for that 80-20 rule of data warehousing. And just as a reference, that rule is that 80% of the analysis only uses 20% of the data in a given kind of fixed data model. Okay. And importantly, the functionality of the tool scales as business users climb the skills curve. Okay, so it's not like the offering is a very limited product that they can easily kind of come up to speed on, and then they run out of runway. This is a tool where they can transition from that easy, straightforward user experience to something like a Cognos Workspace Advanced, but then get all the way up to the the capabilities that are available in something like Report Studio. Okay, and then the other piece of that definition is protect the uninitiated. So certainly Cognos Analytics is grounded in governed metadata that addresses traditional BI needs. And again, we're providing a graduated interface where advanced features are a click away. So again, we're focusing the uninitiated on kind of the safe and straightforward reporting platform. Should they need more advanced features, again, they're just a click away. And this is all based on the same trusted and robust enterprise platform and architecture that you've come to know. So let's get into the top features. Okay, so in terms of consumption, if we think about how, in our everyday online life, how we search for content used to involve digging through curated classifications and navigation structures, right? So finding the reports and content we need in Cognos BI has followed this same paradigm for the last 12 years. Certainly, along the way, search functionality was introduced, but it required a certain level of administrative attention, and it was typically out of date and generally left us wanting more. Okay, so certainly as our online world has evolved, so has Cognos. So today, if we were looking for something in our online lives, we simply fire up our favorite search engine and off we go. The same is now true for Cognos Analytics. And as you can see here in this screen cap, search is the most prominent thing in the interface when you first get into it. Okay, so again, in terms of the top feature, Smart Search sits right at the top in terms of consumption. And so it's designed, Cognos Analytics is designed with a search-first approach. It allows you to filter for object type and date modified, among other things. It allows you to save your search parameters. So in this case, we're searching for revenue. We can save that search, and then 2 weeks from now, we can run that again. It's not going to save the search results. It just saves that definition. And then the final nice thing about this is it's always up to date. So there's no need, so I guess in the 10.2.2 and before world, there's no need to be managing an indexing job, making sure that runs, et cetera, right? So that the indexes are all kept up to date. Okay. The next top feature in terms of that consumption persona is the context-sensitive interface controls. So with Cognos Analytics, long-awaited features are now available with a simple right-click. So whereas in the past we've had to use custom JavaScript to introduce things like sorting into our list reports or what have you, these are now just a simple right-click away. So users can filter, sort, aggregate, and group on the fly with the ability to section and recast list or crosstabs to charts as well. Okay, so now let's move into the authoring persona. Okay, so the top feature here is the attractive and intuitive authoring experience. On-demand menus provide for a clean and easy-to-use interface, right? So we talked a little bit about the idea that the interface is graduated in that when you first initially are using it, we're looking at a simple interface. What you need to find is right at your fingertips. However, if you wish to go beyond, right, so bring up the properties window per se, you can do that with a simple click. Again, it's just just right outside the focus of the interface. Okay. really this is one-stop authoring that scales with users. So in the past, when we've worked with clients, there was always a discussion about, well, you know, which of the studios is appropriate for which user community. And certainly we would always start with the idea that, well, business users should be directed towards Cognos Workspace Advanced, and the more IT professionals, you know, we would position for Report Studio. But, you know, certainly with the addition of additional studios, with the rise of, if you will, the power user, right, that combination of business and technical user, it's sort of like, well, what was the, you know, it kind of muddied the messaging, right? So by providing one interface, you don't need to really manage the message. It's more about getting in here, using the tool, and if you need more, again, it's just a simple click away. Okay. Another nice feature here is the guided visualization. So when you're building dashboards, this idea that visualizations are suggested based on what your data is. Okay. All in all, what this means is reduced time to value for business users. And again, that's one of the main themes here with Cognos Analytics, right? That the rise of self-service, right? The idea that you know, today we see in the competitive landscape desktop tools that have been out for a number of years now who are, you know, offering that promise of, hey, I can, you know, use this desktop tool to get my data set, do my analysis, and I don't need to wait in line, right? I can do this on my own. So, you know, this tool is giving you those types of features. Okay. Okay, and then the last persona we're going to cover is the data modeling persona. So the top features here are the easy upload of personal or external data into data modules that you can report against, right? So this is a rationalization and improvement on the approaches of the past. So when I say that, I mean things like my data sets or external data, okay? And in fact, with this tool, I can report directly off data sources with no need for a semantic layer. So no FM modeling is necessary to begin reporting, okay? And that accelerates time to value tremendously. Again, that is the paradigm of the clicks and tableaus of the world, okay? Combining enterprise data and external data is pain-free. So, you know, there's a facility here for automatic generation of data models based on keywords. Now, the important thing here is that administrators still have control over this, right? So we've not gone to the Wild West. You as an administrator still have the ability to control this. So there's a capability that enables or disables something called web-based modeling, and that's what we're talking about here, okay? And so, you know, kind of a final statement here with data modeling is, again, a definition from Cindy Howson of Gartner, and that is that, you know, it's a governance model that includes freedom, okay, with business and IT as partners. So this isn't the traditional enterprise, highly controlled, traditional BI platform where users have to wait. Users have to wait if they have some data they want loaded up and exposed. I mean, that could take weeks, right? With this, they have the ability to do that, but again, it's in concert with that governed traditional BI as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand control over to Bob.
All right, thanks, Scott. And can you see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. So thanks, Scott, for the intro. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for taking some time out to take a look at Cognos Analytics, or Cognos 11, as it's called under the covers. I'm going to go ahead and log myself in here and select a namespace and my user ID and password. And as Scott mentioned, we're going to run through a couple of the top pillars of the Cognos Analytics release. As he mentioned, one of the biggest things is obviously the look and feel. The UI is completely different. This is all built off of the enterprise breadth and depth of the tool from the 10X releases. So all of the functionality, all the capabilities you've had all along with the Framework Manager modeling, those data sources, multiple data sources, packages, bursting, security, all of that sits inside of this as well. What we've added is a number of the things that Scott mentioned in the presentation to really, as one of my customers brought it, bring it into the new tech century. It's a completely different look and feel, and we've added a lot of functionality as well. Still, you have your My folders and public folders are still there. So My content and public folders are now Team content. All the folder structure is still available to you, so I can take a look at all that information. It's just a different way of serving it up, and we're hoping a much easier way of serving this information up as opposed to the old folder structure that we went through before. You also have the ability to take a look at some of the recent items that you've been working on in the past, whether they be some data modules, some dashboards, some reporting content that you're working with. You can also set something as a home page, and we'll take a look at potentially subscriptions as well. I have my subscriptions, my preferences, the inbox and watch items we've had in the past, the ability to sign in and out. And down here you've got a new item that you can take a look at. So I want to build a new dashboard or a data module. I can upload files, which we'll take a look at as well. Notifications are based off of subscription. So if I have a subscription report, I'll see a notification based on that, and manages the administration functions. And this is the full-blown capability of the administration functions. One of the big pillars for this was the fact that we're going to make sure that the UI is going to look the same no matter where you are, whether you're just a consumer, whether you're authoring, whether you're building a data module. The idea is that ribbon across the top is always going to be there, that left-hand pane is always going to be there. So that graduated user interface from very beginning, of first stepping in, doing some searching, taking a look at a couple reports to a full-blown author. That look and feel, everything you've learned will be passed on, as opposed to in the past where we had a number of different studios, a number of different looks and feels. So hopefully that graduate interface will make people more comfortable and bring them along that journey of reporting. So as Scott mentioned before, we've really enhanced the search capabilities and made it very prominent as part of the UI. So I can type something in here. I've actually got a couple of saved searches. So if I click on sales, I've got a large number of items here that are available to me. I can save a search, as you see. I can also filter this. So the date modified, whether it's been in the past week, past month, all, and I can look at specific items. So if I just want to see reports, or if I want to look at data-driven items, in this case it's Framework Manager model packages, or folders as well, and those are the similar folders as well. So the ability to filter on those items as you're looking through them makes it much easier. Now I can get rid of that just as easily. I can click on the other search I have, which is for abandoned, and you'll notice, so we search not only obviously the names and descriptions and screen tips of data item or of items in the content store, but we actually look at the metadata as well, and you'll see that the call center dashboard and the data module don't actually have the word abandoned anywhere in that, but it's also part of the metadata, so that comes back for your search as well. And finally, if I go ahead and clear that, I'm just going to go ahead and start typing in the word revenue, and you'll see as I type in, I get some help type ahead, and it lets me take a look at some of the options I have. So if I go ahead and select revenue, and it brings back a long list of items I can take a look at. So as Scott also mentioned, so there's no more indexing, there's no more worried about having to build that out. It's actually part of the tool. So when it's in the content store, it's available for searching. So we're taking a look at revenue. I'm going to go ahead and click at revenue by line over here. It's a report I've got. It's actually quite a simple report that was built. It's a chart and a list. They're based off of the same query, but very, very simple, very fundamental. And as an end user now, I see even when I was in the search window, the main page, I have a ribbon across the top, and I have some options across the left-hand side that I have here as well. Another one of the big pillars for this too is the fact that whether you're using a tablet, mobile, or a desktop browser, the UI for the consumer is going to be the same. So the search is going to look exactly the same and function the same. these report outputs and everything that we're going to see here up until the authoring is going to be the same as well. So I look at this report. I'll take a look at my list over here. If I go ahead and select product line and just click on that, I get a little bit of a pop-up menu, and it lets me take a look at some things here. I can do some filters. I can do some sorting. I can add some summarization if I want. I can do some grouping and ungrouping. I can pivot this from a list to a crosstab. Or on the fly, I can change this into a different chart. But what I'll do here with the product line is I'm going to go ahead and click on Group. What that does is goes back and re-renders that report for me. So from here, I'm going to take a look at this. Obviously, outdoor protection is not a very strong seller, so I'm going to come into outdoor protection. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to filter. So I'm going to exclude outdoor protection. And again, as I mentioned before, so this list and this chart are based off of the same query, so they interact with each other automatically. I can do the same thing for year. So if I come into year, I'm going to exclude 2004. And I can come in if I want and select revenue, and I'm going to sort that descending. So a number of the things that people in the past have had to build either creative prompting with or some JavaScript techniques, we've added all of this right into the output of the report viewer. So it's going to give you a lot of flexibility and capabilities for building report output, but not necessarily having to answer all of the questions an end user or the consumer might have, because they're going to have the ability to go in here and actually modify some of this. So I can actually come in here now and go ahead and select year, and I'm going to switch this to pivot that list to a crosstab. And again, it goes back and it basically takes the same data and then it switches that around. So very easily, I came in as a consumer, an end user, to something that are a report that someone else could have rendered for me, and I've actually changed this more for my needs. But if there's a little farther I want to go with this, one more step I want to take. So I'm not necessarily interested in revenue, but I want to take a look at a different measure. So I can go up here and click on this icon right here. It's the edit icon. Now, when I click on that, you'll notice that the screen doesn't change all that much. And again, that concept of a graduated user interface. I'm still in the same view. I'm looking at the report, but now I've got some different toolbox objects available to me here. And my ribbon up top just changed slightly. If I take a look at this now, and this is all based off of a framework manager package, which would come forward with me from my 10X environment. Still a huge component for reporting, and we'll take a look at the web modeling in a few minutes, but still a strong part of our story is the framework manager modeling and packages and building that metadata for your end user. So what I'm looking at right now is my source. I can take a look at my data items for the query. Just to quickly run through these, you'll see this is the old toolbox that you'd see in Workspace Advanced or Report Studio. Again, combining those authoring environments into a single UI, single look and feel for all of your end users. The pin section you can actually add items to on your own. So if you right-click on another item somewhere in these layouts, you can add it to your pin section. And for this, the report layouts, we have a report overview. You can look at some validation of the data sources, the individual pages, similar to what you had before with Report Studio, the ability to take a look at a number of different report pages, prompt pages, classes, things like that. So I'm going to move back to my data source. I'm going to go back to the original source. I'm going to open up sales, and I'm going to open up the sales query item, and I'm going to grab gross profit. I'm going to drag that over onto my crosstab that I've created here that actually started out as a list. And I'll change that, and I'm going to go ahead and drag that over onto my chart as well. So go ahead and take a look at change revenue to gross profit, and I'm changing the chart object as well. Now you look at, I'm looking at the page preview section right now. I can actually go into page design, and for the people that are more familiar with Report Studio, this is the old look and feel you would have with all of the properties and things. So if I were able to select something here, open up my properties window, here's the properties for the table cell or the chart object or the individual items for the charting object as well. So all the properties are still, all the capabilities are still there from Workspace Advanced, from Report Studio. We've just combined them into a single authoring environment that should be much easier to use for people. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and go back into page preview. I'm going to turn off my properties. I'm actually looking at that report. So I can now come in here and say, you know what, I'm going to save this as a new report, and I'm going to save it into my content, and I'm just going to call it GP by line over year. Click Save. And as I mentioned before, I can open this up and I can see, I can take a look at some of the other options that are available to me for some of the parameters and conditional styles and layout components as an author. So that's basically a graduated user interface from starting off with a report view that someone else may have built, making it my own by adding some of the components, changing the look and feel a little bit, and then actually getting into the edit mode and building something out that's completely different from what I started with, and saving that off. I can also go in here as a new and report author and open that up. And one of the nice things that we've added to the capabilities now is I can actually start to build a report without actually adding or picking a data source. So I'm just a number of the different templates we have here, a number of the different themes. I'm going to go ahead and just start off with a blank report. Click OK. You'll notice I haven't done anything yet. I haven't selected its source, but I can go ahead and click on this little plus sign here and click List and click OK. And I've got a list report. And I can then go back later and pick the data source or data sources that I want to add to this object. The nice thing here is I can give somebody the flexibility to build out the structure of a report that they might want to see without them actually knowing the data behind that. Which gives them a lot of flexibility for being able to pass things on and off to people. Say, I can build the structure of what I want, the reporting objects, the look and feel, the coloring, the text sizes, things like that, and then let somebody add the data items in later on. So that is reporting from beginning to end, the new report environment, single reporting authoring environment. I'm going to close these now. And you'll see that I've got my content, I've got my GP by line over year available to me to run. So the next phase we're going to take a look at is the data module. So I'm going to go ahead and click New and click on Data Module. And this is Framework Manager Modeling Lite. It's a web capability that we've added. And the key here is the ability to not only upload files, that I have a tab delimited text file or a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet that I can report off and build a dashboard off of, which I can do. I can upload a file or a number of files and join those together. But I can also join those to an enterprise data source. So what I'm going to start off doing here with this data module is I'm going to go and upload files. I have a satisfaction score.txt file that I've uploaded previously. Go ahead and select that. So I'm actually going to go into data servers as well. And it's going to go and take a look at the metadata I have for my data servers. And it's going to figure out that I have a number of those available. So I'm going to go and WCHP, which is a healthcare data set that I have. And it's actually got call center data in it. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that. It's going to go back and look at the schemas I have. I'm going to go ahead and select that. So I've got a text file that I've uploaded and my enterprise data for this database. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start. And what that's going to do is it's going to go through the metadata. It's going to set up a new data module for me. Right now it's empty. And we have over here what's called intent. So I may not know all the components I want for this, but I can start by just saying, you know, I'm going to type in call center and go ahead and click Go. And what it does is it goes back and it reads the metadata that I have associated with not only the data source, the enterprise data source, but that text file that I brought in as well. And based on key values and things that it sees that might tie together, it's going to pull all of that together. So I've got a call center fact, a couple of dimensions, and my satisfaction score text file that I uploaded. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and click Add this proposal. And what it does is based on the metadata, again, it figures out, okay, call center's tied to location, hour, dim, and weekdays, and the satisfaction score. Because it's a text file, I'll have to do a little work for that. But it's starting to build myself a bit of a model here that I can start to take a look at. Now, I'm not quite done with everything. I do know there's one more file I want to bring in, so I go into my enterprise data source and I grab time dimension, and I can drag that in. And so now I'm starting to build out my data module. So what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and click on Select Sources, make that go away. And now I can start to build out some of the information I have based on these data items. So what I can do here is if I look at satisfaction score, I can take a look at the properties for that. And from here, I'm going to go into relationships, and I'm going to create new. And it's actually going to let me join the text file that I've uploaded to a data source or a query subject that's in my database. So I'm going to join it first because I've got call month ID and location ID, weekday ID. So I'm going to go ahead and select location. And from my satisfaction score.txt, I'm going to select my location ID. For location, I'm going to select location ID again. And if I click on this little icon here, it's going to go back and basically give me a representation of what those two are going to look like combined together. Now you notice down here I have the ability to change my join type. So if I want to just do an including matching rows, I can change that into any one of these options here. I also can take a look at the cardinality. So each satisfaction score has one location or multiple. In this case, I know that the satisfaction score is associated with an individual, and I can add a filter join as well. And you'll see here now that the data source came back and said, okay, the location IDs tie together, and I can join all this information. So if I go ahead and click OK, I'll see now that location is tied to satisfaction score and call center. Now, I would do that with the rest of these references, and I would join relationships for all of those, but I won't go through that all right now. What we can do, too, is add some calculations. So I can take a look at, well, let me take a look at abandoned first. So we'll open up the properties for abandoned. You'll see that it came over as an identifier, but I know that it's a fact, so I can actually go in and change that to a measure, and I can change the aggregation to a total. I can take a look at a couple of different items. So if I select abandoned and calls, I can right-click here and create a calculation, and I can do calls divided by abandoned, or if I select them the other way, or I can do the exact same thing the other way. So create a call calculation that way. I can also create calculations based on grouping. So if I select calls and I right-click on that, I can create a custom group. And what that allows me to do is bucket information. So how many groups do I want? Do I want an equal distribution? Do I want a custom distribution? Do I want to change this to 5 groupings? And you'll see it goes through the values here that I can actually create a bucketed view of the calls that I have. And I can actually change these individual names so they're not just the values, but I can give all of these names. And I can create that calculation, or I can replace the calls value as well. I can actually do that not only with measure values, but I can do that with states and regions as well. So if I wanted to grab states, and I can create a custom group for states, what it's going to do is it's going to give me all of the options here, and I can create a new group if I want. So I'll call it East, and click OK. And I can then go in and select items in here to add to that group. And I can create, again, buckets at a dimensional view to add those as well. So let me just cancel this real quick, and I'm going to go out of here and close this before, not to save it, but I'll just give you a quick peek at what that would look like. So if I go back into my content, I'll select call center DM. This is the conversion of that. So I have my call center fact, I have my satisfaction score that I uploaded, and I have the different dimensions that I have access to. So I have all of those joined together, which gives me a reporting object that I can now very quickly pull information in from a text file or Excel spreadsheet, apply that to an enterprise data source, and then build a dashboard or report off of that without actually having to wait for a full-blown framework manager model package. So we see this for a number of, obviously, possible uses. The quick turnaround for that quick report, I have some file information or data on my desktop. I need to build some nice reports or dashboards off of that for a meeting coming up. I just want to get those out as quickly as possible and make those available to people, or just for myself for that meeting. Or it's a great way to kind of hash out what a model might look like. So I have a number of different data objects. I want to make a quick look at what the reporting might look like for that data source before I go back and build that framework manager model for it. So it gives you a kind of a step up, kind of a graduated stepping into that modeling side. So real quick too while I'm in here, so call center, if I open up this little icon right here, I can actually take a look at the cardinality. And this degrees of separation, if you have a larger model, if you're looking at a number of different data sources, it allows you to hide and show things based on what you selected. So if you're 1 or 2 degrees of separation from call center, it'll only show you the fields or the tables joined to that. So what would I do with this? So I've got my call center DM. I'm going to go ahead and close that now. What I'm going to do is going back into my content, I'm going to select the call center dashboard. This was the dashboard that I built using Cognos Analytics based off of the data module that we just looked at. So a number of different chart objects here, the satisfaction score, percentage of calls abandoned, average answer in minutes, and a number of filters over here on the left-hand side. So if I select afternoon, and I don't know how well it's going to show up on the webinar, but you'll see a lot of these objects change based on the selections I've made. You'll also notice that when I select afternoon, this military hour filter changes as well. So it's only going to show those available based on the filters I've selected. If I want to limit that to just 2015, I can take a look at that, and you'll see everything change. And I have one more filter down here, so it's a time zone. So if I select Mountain and I Control-click Pacific, what it's going to do is filter those items as well. So we're just going to be looking at afternoon calls for 2015 across the 2 time zones of Mountain and Pacific. And a little lag here with my laptop, but you'll see all of those come in now as well. And as an end user of this dashboard, I also have the tray down here. So if I open that up and slide that up a bit, you'll see the actual data that I'm building this dashboard off of. So the call center fact, the hour dimension, the location, and I can use any one of these as well for filtering. So if I select it on state, I could go in here and I could actually define filters based on the individual states that I wanted to look at and apply those to the chart as well. So not only the objects that I've added filters for on the dashboard itself, I can use, but I can use data item to filter that as well. So that's nice, but how did I build that? So let me come back into New. I'm going to select Dashboard. It's going to give me a number of the layouts I have access to, the infographics. I can create a tab look or a single page look. I'm going to go ahead and select this layout right here. Go ahead and click OK. And for time purposes, I'm going to make this, I'm not going to build the exact same report we looked at, but I'm going to take a quick peek at some of the other capabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and click my, select my data item here. You'll notice if I go into call center, so if I grab % abandoned and just drag that into a cell, by default, it just knows that it's a value that I can take a look at, and it aggregates that for me. I also have a search capability here, so if I open up search, I can say, let's say I want to see abandoned by, let's say, territory, and hit enter. And what it does is it takes that and it goes back and says, okay, we have abandoned, we have territory. This is where I found those things, and this is a chart that we think might fit what you're looking to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click Use. It's going to drag that into that cell there. What I'm going to do is drag that over here, and I'm going to space that out a little bit bigger. And I'm starting to build myself a little bit of a dashboard, not really knowing what I'm looking for, but it's going to give me some ideas here. So I'm going to go back into my data source here, and I'm going to select this chart, and I get a little pop-up here, and it's going to say duplicate. So I'm going to go ahead and select duplicate, and it's going to give me another version of this, and I'm going to drag this over here. And what I'm going to do now is I'll size that, and I'm going to go in here and go into my location, and I'm going to drag in region this time, and I'm going to drag it right on top of that. Nope, missed it. So let me just undo that. And I'm going to drag region on top of that. Why isn't it letting me do that? Well, bear with me 1 second, folks. Let me slide this over here out of the way. And I'm going to drag region one more time and try that. Now, for some reason, it's not letting me do that right now. So let me try it on the original one. Nah, so it's not working for some reason right now. Oh, my apologies. So what would happen is and I'll show you what we would see if I did this from scratch. Let me get rid of this one. And I'm going to drag region over here. And then I'm going to drag my abandoned percentage rate on top of that. And you'll see that it makes that chart. So now if I tried, let's say, hour of day, and I drag that on, there we go. Now the perfect example of that, but you'll see that similar to a Watson Analytics, as I drag things on top of each other as on the charting objects, they start to build something for me and give me an idea of what would look good or what would be an idea for a chart for these objects. Now I can always come into these and change the chart type, so I can come in here and if I wanted a stacked bar or a bar or column, any other of the objects we have available, I can do that as well. And if I close that out, you'll see that I have a number of properties available to me as well for the data objects. So visualization details, I can hide access title labels, hide empty values if I want to abbreviate numbers, things like that. So very easy to take a data source from my desktop, apply it to a data source that we have access to in the enterprise, join that information together, and start to build a dashboard that I can use either for myself or to share with other people. So what, again, the end result of that, if I go ahead and take a look at this here, call center dashboard, this is the end result of what we were to build. It literally takes a matter of minutes once you start to drag these objects in here and to build that out for you. So Scott, that's, we're coming up about a quarter of the hour. That's basically what I wanted to show. Do you want me to hand you back presenter?
Thanks, Bob. Can you make Scott the presenter?
I sure can.
Thank you.
And there you go, Scott.
Okay, 1 second.
You got it?
1 moment.
Okay, thanks. So great job, Bob. And now we're going to open it up for Q&A. We have a lot of questions that have come in already. And like I said earlier on today's call, if you have a question that doesn't go answered, we'll make sure we get back to you in a couple of days. But right now, while I filter some of the questions that come in, I have Eric Romanek, who is part of our managed services team. She's going to talk about a special offer we have for you today.
Hi, like Kristen said, my name is Eric Romanek. I'm the manager of our platform services team, and I also run our managed services group. And based on the way that you guys are watching this and asking questions, it's great to see that everybody's so excited about Cognos Analytics. And what I wanted to do is put out an offer that we have for the first 20 individuals that sign up today. Ironside will offer to basically have a sandbox environment for you to play in. And one of the great things about that, one of the things that's different in our solution to the free solution that IBM is offering you is you can see some of the administrative components as well in a multi-tenanted environment. So you'll have an opportunity to actually see what it looks like to add data sources and things like that. We'll map it to a -DB instance with a couple of with some not dummy data, but additional data sets in there for you to leverage. And you'll have a chance to basically leverage some of our expertise as far as how to get things set up and if you have any questions through an email conduit. So if you're interested, just link up to that link at the bottom of your page, sign up, give us your information, and we'll be happy to get you set up.
Thanks, Eric. And in addition, we'll email this link out about an hour after the webinar takes place, along with a survey regarding today's webinar performance. So we'd appreciate if you just take a couple minutes of your time to fill it out. We really appreciate it. So now I'm going to go through some of the questions, and our team here will answer them as they can. So the first question that came in is, can we personalize the colors in the user interface, styles like any theme customization or updating some XML files to match corporate colors?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that made it into the very first release, and so to kind of back up this, so the first release was GA on the 23rd of December. There were a handful of things that they had to not put in because of the time constraints, but they're looking to have a number of upgrade packages available. And the idea would be similar to what we have with public folders and the viewer before. You'd have the ability to skin that, as it were, and change those as well. I'm not 100% sure it's in the first release, but I can check on that.
How do we get to saved output? And how do we manage whether a report will run or bring up saved output?
Yeah, so as the properties of a report, if you expand those out in My Content or Team Content, there's a couple of tabs there that go and show you the versions, the capabilities of all of the saved output scheduling. All of that is built into the properties window as the flyout for the report. So all of the capabilities you had before, saved output, scheduling, bursting, all of that capability is in the properties window for report output.
Okay, let's see the next one. How do you launch Cognos Analytics? Is it separate studio from Cognos BI server installation?
Yeah, so it's a whole new environment. So it's the way you get to it is with a URL through a browser.
Okay. It seems that data servers are all set up as dynamic query only. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. The JDBC drivers for Cognos Analytics.
What module is this specifically where the data sources are being combined, CSV and DW?
So that's the capability there is called web-based modeling, and that is known as the data modeling interface or module. So.
Does the new data module rely on primary and foreign keys for the joins or just names of columns?
So when it creates those, your first pass of that is going to do something similar to what we've done with Framework Manager, and those are just assumptions. So you would need to check to make sure that that's all right. But it's going to be on for a data source, a data server, enterprise server. It's going to take a look at primary and foreign keys, and then best guess on the naming convention as well.
Is my data module replacement for my data sets in 10.2.2? If yes, does it support Oracle SQL Server as content store?
So there's a couple of different questions in there. So if we talk about content stores, yes, Oracle is supported as a database for your content store. In terms of my data sets and the relationship to the content store, so when my data sets came out in 10.2.2, you had to install a separate DB2 instance to support that. Now with Cognos Analytics, when you are uploading data, there's an uploading file facility. It's actually stored on disk in a columnar data store, so you don't need a database for that.
Okay. Is there a DB limitation for the uploading of personal data sets? In Cognos 10.2.2, DB2 was the only supported DB.
Yeah, so same answer, right? So you don't need DB2, but there are two controls that you have in place in terms of the size of the data that you upload. One of them is sort of okay, for this upload, what is the limit, right? In terms of a single upload, what's the limit, and then what's the limit for this user overall? And I think the defaults are 100 megabytes for the individual upload and 500 megabytes for the all the uploads for a given user. Those are editable, but of course, make sure that you have enough disk space.
Can you drag an OLAP-based report or TM1-based report onto the dashboard?
Not for this release. That is something that they're putting together for a future release, hopefully a very, very quick release. The data modules currently are just JDBC drivers based off of relation.
But certainly, certainly you can still author a report against a package that's based on a TM1 or other dimensional data source.
Absolutely, yep.
Can the dashboard integrate into SharePoint?
So the answer there is yes. So integration with SharePoint 2010 and 2013 is supported.
For existing Cognos customers, is this version available to download and use now, or is there an additional cost?
Available to download now. It's on Passport Advantage. Yeah, as long as you have active support, yada, yada.
Are there any specific steps required to move from 10 to this new environment?
It would be just an upgrade as it would have been from any of the 10X moving up from 10 to 10.1 to 10.2. It's the same migration path for 10 to 11.
Go ahead.
What that really means is that there's not an upgrade. It's an uninstall and a reinstall, right? You can keep your content store, and all of your back-end reports follow through, but you can't just apply a fix on top of the existing environment and be on 11. You have to reinstall it.
The other item of note is that IBM has said that a version of Lifecycle Manager that supports Cognos Analytics will be made available in early 2016, so soon.
Are there any enhancements to charts or maps?
Right. Oh, go ahead.
So I guess what I would say to that is certainly I have seen new visualizations, more array visualizations. I've seen new ones be made available in this tool, but other than that, I don't know that there's any specific enhancements. But go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, that's basically correct. Is the capabilities are exactly the same as they were the 10.2X editions for the Rave visualizations and maps. What we've done is we've made many more of them available out of the box for the dashboarding components, and there is actually like a state map available in the dashboard that you can just drag a state component on with a measure, and it's going to build a map for you. So, and that's going to get more robust and better as new versions come out.
Can you create public folders and apply security?
So
yeah, all the capabilities you had before with the folder structures, you can build new folders. You can add apply security to all of them. All of that capability, all of the underlying structures are still there. It's just a matter of change that we've changed the UI, hopefully to make it a little more user-friendly and easier to navigate.
And so the other Bob, I don't know if you mentioned this, but the folders have been renamed a bit. So public folders is now team folders, and which is a little different. It's just naming.
Are we able to connect to two different data sources to create a model?
So I think there's two parts here. So there is the idea of framework manager models, and then there's the idea of data modules, right? So certainly the capability of doing that within framework manager and publishing that as a package is still there. But I did see, Bob, I don't know how exact I am on this, but I believe that you could create a data module against two different data sources and then make a third data module that tied together those two data modules. But it's a bit convoluted. I don't know if you got any.
Exactly. Bringing forward the framework manager concept of multiple different data sources, disparate data sources, you can do the exact same thing in the data module. Same caveats apply. At the end of the day, we're not tying databases together. We're not a database connectivity software. But we will allow you, and the demo I gave was a flat file in a data source. I can just as easily have combined two different databases together and query across those in that data module as well.
Can you speak to Fixpack installs?
I know where this question is going. I don't know yet. I know, and my assumption is you're asking about the fact that will Fixpacks be an install over, as opposed to sometimes in the past when they've been full loads. I know that's a sore point, even with the product management, is that they know they need to do a much better job of making sure that once I install a version, everything I install on that version after that is just simply laid over the top of it. I know they're working very hard for that, but I haven't heard anything yet. We'll know more when that first enhancement/Fixpack comes out, hopefully very soon.
Okay, we have a couple more minutes here and still a lot of questions, so it's a good thing. Are we getting any closer to different licensing that would allow anyone, not specifically licensed as a Cognos user, to consume a report?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think so. But I do know that there are there's a graduation of licenses, and you can get pretty fine-grained. I think there's like kind of an information consumer license that's very information distribution license that's very very specialized for consuming content that's been output from Cognos Analytics. But I would imagine that if you're going to consume anything that's been produced, you need at least some level of license. But we can certainly follow up with the sales team.
It looks like the Passport Advantage has recommended downloads of a mix of Cognos 11 and Cognos 10.2.2. Do you know about a transformer, the version 11?
A transformer would have been the previous version still.
Is there a new SDK with Cognos 11?
Yes, there absolutely is a new version of SDK that came out with Cognos Analytics. And it should be available through your Passport Advantage account if you're entitled to it.
We received our framework from a vendor to use with their data, and we have customizations on top of that. If the vendor does not migrate to support 11, would we be restricted to staying in 10x environment, or is there functionality to import, convert legacy framework files?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, I think that's something we'll have to follow up on.
Yeah, I don't know what the licensing implications are, or the fact that the vendor has a different version. There's nothing technically preventing you from using framework manager model packages that were built in 10.2x in 11. It's actually quite a simple upgrade. Look at what the content store was, or bringing a deployment package over to upload those over. So technically speaking, there's not a problem. It's a matter of more of the licensing implications and what the vendor had.